Ho, ho, ho. Merry Christmas, Neal. How you doing?
I'm doing very well. How are you, Chad?
Good. It's middle of December. The holidays are upon us, and really excited about the episode we're about ready to have.
I am too. It's been a good year too. So let's do the intro and we'll introduce our guest.
Here we go.
Recorded live from Louisville. It's Talk About Town, the Louisville podcast. And now, your hosts, Neal Cox and Chad Hennessy.
Hey, Ron White here. I'm nowhere to be found. You're listening to Talk About Town, like I give a...
All right, we're here with Jeremy Harrell, and he is with Veterans. Wait, say it for me.
Veterans Club Incorporated.
Veterans Club Incorporated.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep.
And it was very interesting because we know a lot of the same folks when we were sitting here waiting to start, tossing around names like, oh my gosh, we know all kinds of people in common. I can't think today. But we want to introduce Jeremy. So welcome. Thank you for coming on the show. And we want to learn more about you and your Veteran Clubs, Inc. that you run.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I appreciate the opportunity to talk to you all today and have a good show here, and hopefully can add value to the listeners.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So you are a Louisville native. We
Yes.
established that. Went to PRP. Sometimes you have to make sure that you get what high school you went to, right?
Yeah, you have to. That's a Louisville thing, right?
Louisville.
We don't ask what
one of the first
college you went
questions.
through. Yeah.
Yep.
It's where'd you go to high school, and that's all that matters,
I know,
right?
I know
and you're either accepted or not, depending on where you went to high school.
Exactly.
But I love that about our community. I really love that it's a big small town.
That's right.
It really is.
And in the military, I've been everywhere, and I've always missed Louisville. I've always missed home. So I love this space,
Did you join the military right out of high school?
I did.
Okay.
Yep. I got out of high school, went to the military and served 8 years, and then got hurt and had to get out of the game, so to speak. And then just kind of went the corporate route, worked at places like UPS and things like that, and just realized that this wasn't great jobs, and I had a lot of people who were, when I was talking about leaving and doing what I do now, that were like, why would you do that? Because in our community, UPS is a big employer, right? And it's a good job to have, much
Right.
like Ford and things like that. But I just had a deeper calling. I think I just really wanted to help my fellow brothers and sisters in arms because I wasn't able to serve anymore. So I decided to start a nonprofit and serve in that capacity.
I love that.
Jeremy, which branch were you in?
United States Army.
That's great.
Yeah.
And you did tours in Iraq, is that
Yeah.
right?
Yep. I went to Iraq during the initial invasion, 2003 to 2004, and I worked at enemy prisoner war camps.
Oh, wow.
Spent 16 months there, come home and try to get on with life. Met a little bit of resistance with that. Had some issues that seemed like my new normal, so to speak. But realized quickly that there was some stuff I had to process and deal with, and through that, which seemed to be a longer time than it actually was, I learned so much about kind of what it looks like for mental health with veterans and kind of dealing with combat trauma and things like that. And I decided, although it's been challenging, to try to overcome some of these things, I've learned so much, and it would be a disservice if I didn't use this knowledge to help those who were still coming back. Because at that time we were the first wave, right? And so we've been, Afghanistan was a 20-year war, Iraq close to that. So there were still folks coming back, and I was, wanting to have a platform to say, hey, come over here, let us help you, because we really understood. I really understood what they were dealing with. And which was a need in the community, and now we serve over 7,000 veterans in this region that we know about. Then there's the ones across the country indirectly that we serve through our programs.
Mm-hmm.
So you just answered one of the questions I have. It's not really just Louisville based. It sounds like it's more of a regional base.
Yeah, it started. So we were 5 years old last month. Started in 2017, and it was called the Louisville Veterans Club, right? And then we kind of outgrew it and become Kentucky and outgrew that. So now, we're serving, veterans all over the United States and even across the pond was what we call it.
Nice.
And so, yeah, so we're all about helping veterans anywhere they are. But our passion and our focal point, our primary focus is here at home.
Very good.
So yeah.
One of the most emotionally impactful books I've ever read was, I cannot remember the name of the author or the name of the book right now, but I read it. It came out 4 or 5 years ago, and it was written by a contractor that was in Iraq, and he was like an interrogator, and he was a contractor. I remember finishing that book. I was on a tour bus in Puerto Rico with a bunch of kids and adults, and it wasn't appropriate for me to bust out sobbing all of a sudden, but that's what I had to restrain that because it was so impactful, and that's just reading about it. So being there, I'm sure, is that times 100.
Yeah,
sure.
it's so really it's really difficult to put into words exactly what it's like, right? I mean, it's almost like the words that we use in our vocabulary, it just doesn't do it justice. You know, especially at the age, you know, I was 21 and turned 22 there, and you know, that's at a pretty critical point in my life as I become a man and all that good stuff, and had a young daughter, very young when I left, and so yeah, it's just the stuff that you would see on TV, but worse. And you know, one thing that I learned really quickly is we don't know how good we have it here. You know, like it was a culture shock in a million different ways, but it was, you know, also the state of being in fear for, you know, over 400 and something days.
Right.
I mean, that takes a toll on your body, both physically and mentally. And but there were also some things that happened, like the kind of brotherhood that we have, you know, the relationships that we created with each other, but also the good that we did for the people of Iraq. That it was kind of like a seesaw, you know, it's like a roller coaster. Some days you're like, yeah, we're doing the right thing. Other days you're like, what are we doing here? But I think that's kind of the common denominator for everyone. But I wouldn't, you know, as hard as it was, I wouldn't not do it again if I had to.
Right.
There was a lot of good that come out of it, you know, and that's what we signed up for. We signed up to sacrifice so others wouldn't have to.
Yeah.
Do you find yourself? Are you still in touch with a lot of your brothers over there, or just kind
of? Yeah. So we're still in touch, and actually, we're planning a 20-year reunion in August of next year. So we'll be doing that at 4th Street Live area. We'll be getting together and just kind of hanging out. And
will that be guys from all over the country?
Yeah. So they're all over the place, and they'll fly in and drive in, and we'll just spend an evening together. We try to get together every 5 years.
That's great.
So we've been doing that since we deployed.
Yeah.
And
it's funny you mentioned, you know, we don't realize how good we have it here. I go through bouts of like, man, I'm so glad I live in where I do. But then I go to like, man, there's so much corruption and things are creeping up on us and all that stuff. And I, you know, bounce back and forth to that too. So I don't know. We are lucky. I have not been in combat or anything, but I've been out of the country and seen things that's like, you know, the poor in our country for the most part would be doing way better than a lot of people in a lot of places.
Yeah, and you know, we're not without challenges for sure.
Exactly.
Right? And you know, if we think too much into our own personal bubble there, we can kind of get lost in that. But I mean, that's one thing that even through tough times we have here at home, kind of gets me through is, you know, the end of the day, no one is shooting at us every single day or trying to blow us up or any of that, you know. So at the basic fundamental level there, we can have a terrible day, and I'll take that any day over a terrible day across the pond in the sand, you know, and losing brothers and sisters. So, you know, it kind of keeps my you know, glass half full, so to speak.
Yeah.
You said that your time in the military your deployment was primarily in Iraq, or you did not go to Afghanistan?
I did not. We were actually on the way to Afghanistan, and then George Bush at that time said, "Let's go," and then we kind of changed direction.
Okay.
So we, you know, I got back and started training soldiers who were going to go later, and so
where were you stationed doing that?
So Fort Knox.
Okay.
Yeah, I spent a lot of my time at Fort Knox, to be honest, which was. It was cool, but you know, it would have been nice to go to some other places, and I did. I went to, you know, Fort Lee, I went to Fort Jackson, I went to you know, Fort Campbell, and you know, different places across the pond to, you know, Ireland and Amsterdam and you know, Kuwait and Iraq, places like that. Cyprus, which is a weird place.
I bet it's beautiful.
What's that?
Cyprus.
It was.
Yeah.
It was. We went there too long, but it's it's like an island. It's really, really nice. But I never did get to go. Like sometimes when you're in the Navy, you know, you get to go and you port, like in Spain or Portugal, and you get to get off the boat and hang out. Like they didn't really send us to places like that, you know. So when they say you're going to see the world in the Army, we did, but it wasn't necessarily a welcoming place.
It wasn't a vacation.
It was not. No offense to the Navy, you know, they work hard, they do great things, but they just have better ports that they pull into. So yeah, but again, I wouldn't trade it for anything, and I learned so much in a very short period of time. I had to grow up really fast there. But it really was beneficial when I come home, and it's beneficial in what I do now. And then as a father and a husband, I mean, there's some, you know, it will grow you up very quickly.
I'm sure,
and you value life a lot more because you realize how fragile it is and how quickly it can be taken from you. So it just gives you more of an optimistic approach and mindset.
That's good. I think it would be easy to do the opposite.
Oh yeah, yeah. And you know, there's times that you know, in all transparency, there's times where you can go down that dark rabbit hole because here's the deal: is you may leave the battlefield, but the battlefield, you know, doesn't necessarily leave you, and which is why we do what we do at Veterans Club. You know, we work with vets who have post-traumatic stress disorder and combat trauma and other life challenges, traumatic brain injury, things like that. And the reality is, we'll never forget that, but. It's just a matter of perspective, you know, in order for me to overcome that. And it took me a decade, to be honest, to kind of overcome that and to start thinking the way I do now. But just to know that, you know, that I just had to hunt the good, you know, and that's what we talk about a lot. And we focus on what we call post-traumatic growth. You know, the lessons you've learned, the things that you've experienced can also be positive in your life and others. And so when we started hunting the good, it started to make more sense. And you know, we realized, I tell veterans sometimes who say, you know, not so many people understand us. And I say, well, or not so much understand us, but understand what it looks like to serve in combat, right? And the good news is that's where our mission's accomplished, right? We don't want everybody back home to know that. That's why we do it, right? And so that just mind shift right there, that just change of perspective. They're like, you know, that's a good point.
Yeah.
You did your job. You did your job well, because there's 97% of people outside your door don't get it. And that's the beauty of it. Right. And so when they start thinking that way, it just transforms their mind and they start to look at a positive view of what they did in the military.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That, I mean, that's, I'd never really even thought about that. And, I know that things that I've struggled with in life have turned into something useful down the road. And I hadn't really even thought about that with veterans.
I like the, you know, the term, and we could all live by that, hunting the good.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's a necessity. You know, I think sometimes the way that we think, it seems to be optional. You know, in reality, you have to be mentally tough, and it doesn't mean that you're not emotional. It doesn't mean that you don't feel, you don't process life. It's about what you do with it. It's about resiliency, which we talk a lot about in our organization. We create programs around it. Is yes, this terrible thing happened, but with any terrible thing that happens, and I know that some people out there who've experienced trauma may go, I don't know where he's going with this, but a lot of things that happen to us, we can somehow find a positive out of it. Now, there may be a lot more negative than positive, but I just think you have to look for it, right? You have to look for it, not only because you grow from it, but also it transforms your mind. And maybe you don't feel like you were such a victim. You just know that something bad happened. And that's what life promises us, really, that we're never going to have a lifestyle of just harmony without any kind of struggle. And struggle also brings out a phenomenal amount of revelation about who you are and maybe who you're not that you think you are. But it gives you an opportunity to grow. And I think that's what we do. We practice that, right, until we leave this world. And so that's kind of the shift in mindset that we focus on.
I love that. You know, I put myself out there. Even beyond this podcast, I do a lot of advertising on social media, on YouTube for my day job and things like that. And the amount of people that make comments that are just like, man, you're just choosing to be miserable. And it's crazy.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of, you said hunting the good. There's a lot of people that have chosen, or they live life, or they're just looking for the negative or trying to pick the negative. Yeah. And, you know, congratulations, by the way, 5 years.
Thanks.
That's a major milestone. That's awesome.
Thank you. You know, we've worked really hard. We've, you know, some people see the growth and they're like, how in the world did you do that in 5 years? But if they understood the hours equal out probably close to 10, 15, right? But you know, we're just so passionate about what we do. We have a great team. it's one thing to know how to do your job and absolutely important, but you also got to share passion, especially when you're in the business of helping people and you run a nonprofits. Like most nonprofits start from some passionate person who has a heart to serve something bigger than themselves. And luckily for me, along the way, we've been able to develop a team who volunteers to do that much of the time. And because of that, we're able to take what we're given and put it back into programs. And the good news about what we do at Veterans Club is that not only do we help our end user, we help those who are struggling in a multitude of capacities, but we also are able to kind of help each other and bless each other and create opportunities for each other to serve, because I believe that helping others helps us heal more than just about anything, right? Yeah. And if there's someone that comes alongside of us who is in the process of healing and they want to give back, I'm absolutely going to give them that opportunity so that they can heal through that. I mean, that's why I'm here today. I mean, I wouldn't have been here. I was in a very bad place, but when I started to help others, I couldn't focus so much on my stuff because I realized that, there's other people out there that need help too. Yep. And I'm not the only one on this island. And that's what veterans need to know, is that they're not alone, right? And we created a family of 7,000 that we can connect them to with a click of a mouse to where they don't have to feel alone. So it's been a really, really good ride, a really good opportunity to just love on the folks who preserve our way of life. I mean, after all, they were willing to lose their life for our freedom here. The least we can do is take care of them when they come back, right?
Absolutely.
Jeremy, you said obviously you're serving about 7,000. Do you have a staff as well? Do you have a paid staff, or what's your all set up?
Yeah. So we have a small staff who are paid, and then we have a really good team of volunteers. Yeah. Obviously a board of directors, and then we have an advisory board who is a team who really just gives me advice. Because one thing I learned early on is no matter what you don't know everything. And a lot of leaders kind of get into this kind of what I call the founder syndrome, where they can only see their own vision, and they're not willing to. And I'm totally opposite of that. I know there's people out there that are smarter than me, and when they are, I shut up and listen, right? And in turn, I'm able to bring a good product to those that need it, and there's no ego. So we're just So we have a very small staff. We want to keep it that way as long as we can. I mean, I know that forces us to work harder, but we want the donations that we get from folks to go as long as they can go, right? So I don't like to have a big overhead.
And I assume you work with all branches as well.
All branches. Yeah. And even this year in 2022, we've always unofficially done it, but we officially opened up also to first responders because we recognize that they deploy every day. Every day they walk out that door
and see deployment. Wild stuff as part of their job. Yeah,
absolutely.
That's great, man. That's nice.
Yeah, and many of them are prior service or in the National Guard reserves. Right. So it makes sense. And the ones that aren't, we love them, them and their families. We serve the whole family too. That's another dynamic about our organization that helps, is that, we're going to give the same attention to your child as we're going to give to the veteran or first responder and your spouse as well. So we believe in keeping families together, seeing restoration in the lives of a unit. And it's been instrumental in our success to date. Yeah.
How often do you have to get past kind of the stigma for somebody that's, oh, I'm fine, that kind of thing? How common is that?
That is really kind of the thorn in our side in our work, right? We are taught and trained, right, to adapt and overcome, right, to embrace the suck, to drink water and drive on, right? All these things, I'm telling you, is what we hear every single day. And when you join the military, generally you're young, and so you're still developing who you are and figuring that out. So that kind of gets ingrained in you. And if I had a dollar for every veteran who said, no, you don't need to help me, you need to help someone who has it worse than me, then we'd never have to fundraise, right? But the reality is if you have anything that you need help with, there's nobody that deserves it more than the next person. There's plenty of opportunity for everybody. And so it's just really hard to get veterans to acknowledge that. They're so selfless, man. Like they're so used to just ignoring their own things and serving other people that it makes it challenging. But when they do make that transition from, I'm not worried about me to, okay, maybe I do need something, it's beautiful to watch them start to overcome some things, and just to kind of watch these things that's been haunting them fall away. And then they start realizing, they go, you know what? man, I really could have been better off years ago if I would have just had somebody to tell me what you've just told me. And now I want to tell others, right? So then they come alongside and they get this mission purpose to go out with us and tell other vets. And then it's like the domino effect. And it's just really, really cool. But that is the challenge, not just for us, but we work heavily with both VA hospitals in Kentucky. And they'll tell you too that it's, you know, when a vet comes in to seek treatment and it could be having the worst day they ever had, and you ask them like, I'm good.
Yep.
I'm fine.
It's
right.
trained.
Exactly. And so we're trying to encourage, you know, especially, you know, me personally I'm trying to encourage veterans to just say, hey, today sucks. Right. I'm having a hard time forgetting what I did in Baghdad, or, you know, I'm very hypervigilant. I can't sleep. I'm irritable. I'm fighting with my family, you know, that kind of thing, so that we can like mitigate that. So it's a challenge. It's getting better though over the course of time, and even folks who are still actively serving in active units, they're starting to encourage soldiers and other branches to just be transparent. And it's not a career killer anymore. At one point, if you was to walk in behavioral health and say, you know, I'm having thoughts of suicide, well, then it's done. They're gonna medically retire you, and maybe that's maybe you're 19 years in, you need one more year, right? Right. And some people don't get to go to 20 because they didn't get the help they needed. So we're trying to fight that every single day.
I'm glad there's less stigma around it, because I think that's true for other sectors too. I know, you know, I'm an Indianapolis Colts fan, and one of our linebackers has been pushing this, you know, it's okay to not be okay kind of initiative, and that came out of nowhere seemingly, and it seems like it's a much more common thing, and that's awesome.
Yeah.
So, where do you guys primarily get your funds from?
So we got our first dose of funding from the state of Kentucky just this year. Predominantly, it's businesses, local businesses, some corporations, mostly private donors. We have fund development, initiatives every quarter. I know that we've partnered with some good people, with Corey Taylor, Slipknot, and his foundation, help raise some money that way. And then we're just blessed to have folks that we haven't even really met yet, but know about us through seeing us, on TV and magazines, things like that, who just send money and say, hey, this is what this is for. And even other organizations, if they can't do what we do or have the reach that we do, sometimes they will funnel a certain amount of budget to us so that we can help. And yeah, it's been really incredible, the support that we've received, especially right now because there's not an active war, and sometimes folks out on the day-to-day, no fault of their own, may assume that there's not a need because there's not an active war. But the reality is we just got out of a couple decade war, year-old wars, and like I said, look at Vietnam veterans. They've been out of the fight for 50 years, but yet it's still like yesterday for them. They're still dealing with stuff. So the need's never null and void. It's always there. Right. We always need support.
Well, it's like you said, in an active war, just the whole element of patriotism comes out in all of us. Sometimes it's the most unified that we as countrymen can be. But do you have a lot of events? Do you have like anything on the horizon, but do you have like a set calendar that, hey, in 2023 we've got to fundraise?
Yeah. So we have a lot of events. So we average about 200 events a year.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, for service member veteran response. Yeah, I mean, you think about 365 days, but yeah, and so one of our primary focuses and what we're most known for is equine therapy. It's a equine facilitated mentoring program, and we help. We run, many of them. I think we're at 383 now in the last 5 years, and that's one of the most effective programs we have. But we have a lot of events out in the community too. We're getting ready to have a veterans business networking event tomorrow at our headquarters. Our headquarters is in St. Matthews. Okay. We just moved there in July. It's a really nice space. It's a multi-purpose building, so it's also for folks who just want to come in, hang out, get on the internet, drink coffee. We're sponsored by Black Rifle Coffee, so they send us thousands of dollars of coffee, and we just can't drink it all. We try though. We put a good dent in it, but we just, officers who are on duty, on patrol, they can stop by. We got a full kitchen. They can fix lunch, whatever it is, we just want to be that space. And then on the 21st, every year, this time of year, for example, we had a dinner on Thanksgiving Day. And then we're going to have a dinner on the 21st, a Christmas luncheon. And we're going to invite veterans who may not otherwise have one of those, veterans who are away from family, but also veterans who are in treatment. It's very important for us to make sure that those who are in treatment for whatever reason, or in Veterans Treatment Court, things like that, that they're recognized and that they get the same same level of love as every other veteran does. So we make sure that we specifically host these events to get them brought over. So we'll have like vets from the Healing Place, the Salvation Army, places like that come, and we feed them, and people donate items so they get to eat and then go shop for the things they need, and they leave with a goodie bag. It's really neat.
That's awesome.
Awesome.
Yeah. I know, the addiction and those kind of issues, it doesn't discriminate. So I'm sure that there's just the same amount of folks that are veterans that struggle with that as well. I like that they need the same love as well.
Yeah, there is. And a lot of them never intended to even use recreational drugs. For a lot of veterans, it's the opioid crisis. They were given medicine to help something else. And just so happens, they got addicted to it. One of the programs that we offer, we've partnered with Louisville Metro Corrections, and we have an equal equity partnership where there's a specific dorm in the jail that if you get arrested and you're a veteran, you can go to that dorm.
Wow.
And it has programming all day. And we, like, I personally go in every Thursday and I talk about life skills, training, things like that. And just kind of listen to the guys and try to figure out what the needs are. What we're trying to do, we have, VBA, Veterans Business Administration, come in with us, Goodwill, Veterans Health Administration. So there's some social workers involved in that. Our goal is to equip them to leave and not come back, right? A lot of them, they don't have a support system. And that's also tough for folks who are addicted. And many of them are in jail because of, drug use or something to do with drugs. And so it's been really effective. We started that on July 4th, actually. Is when we went live on that. And we're seeing a tremendous amount of difference in the folks that are in that program. And really cool. We're a huge advocate for the underdog. I have a heart for those who struggle with anything. And so I just want to make sure that none feel forgotten or left out because maybe they're not the ideal veteran, whatever that looks like, right? But the fact is they all signed the line and was willing to do whatever it took. And many are addicted because of, like I said, wounds they received in country, and they're just trying to overcome that. The next thing you know, here we go, right? So, yeah.
I think that, it's amazing nonprofit that you have because, we're all, like you said, these individuals, yourself included, we wouldn't be where we are today if it wasn't for the sacrifices that are made. So what a better way than to reward. I assume job placement or the help for job placement might end up being part of your mission as well. Do you try to help? I know you said to get them back on their feet, but I don't know if there's any links like, hey, if you're looking for employment, we know this avenue.
Yeah. One thing we like to say is we don't really have limitations on how we'll help, we have a what we call VCAP. Everything has to have an acronym in the military, but it stands for Veterans Club Assistance Program. And that's very broad for a reason. Sometimes we may have a veteran who is an EMT, but wants to become a paramedic to better provide, but he just can't cover the books. We've helped with that before. Or someone needs to get back to Florida to their home and can't get there. We've rented a U-Haul and let them, and even brought a team over to help move them. We do stuff like that, but we help sometimes with rent, mortgage, different things like that if we have the budget for it. But yes, in regards to career transition, we do resume writing, education, but also we bring in experts. So we partner with about 34 agencies across the state. If we try not to reinvent the wheel. If there's someone like we have a good relationship with Kentucky Career Center in Frankfort, and they help us in that regard as well. So we have all of our bases covered. If it's housing, we get connected with some of the local folks who work with homeless, and we do a lot of homeless outreach too. So what we'd like to think is when a veteran comes in our doors, they leave with either the help they need or on their way to the person who can help them.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's great, man.
So what, before we wrap it up, what would help you, like from the general public, from us, for anything? Cause your mission is amazing.
Thank you.
And I'm impressed also with how many partnerships and different influential partnerships that you've forged in such a short amount of time. So how can we help?
Yeah. So, there's several different ways to do that. Obviously donations help, right? Unfortunately, we don't have a product to sell as a nonprofit. We sell hope, right? And so we depend on donations, but even as equal to that, we need ambassadors of the organization. We need people to be out there talking about what we do. And the reality is there's about 300,000 veterans in the state of Kentucky. There's 4 million of us in Kentucky, the last we checked. And so there's odds are of or related to or connected in some way to a veteran. Let them know about us. I mean, that's the simplest but most effective thing you can do so that they can get connected. And whether you're a veteran in need or you're a veteran who just wants connection or you just want to be in community, we have that too. So we have things for veterans who maybe don't need any of the therapeutic services but just want to be a part of what we're doing. But we also have homeless outreach. We have a variety and a range of services, but being an ambassador, donating, talking about us, sharing stuff, following us on social medias and sharing events that we have, that's the best way to help.
Well, speaking of that, is there a way that the listeners can find you? Is there anything you would like to even promote or plug while we got you, whether it be social media pages, phone numbers, whatever it may be?
Yeah. So all the above. We have a nice website at veteransclubinc.org. Very interactive site. You can sign up to donate there. You can sign up to volunteer. You can see what we're doing. The calendar's there. All social media platforms. We're not as heavy on Twitter, just because Twitter is what it is. But but Instagram, Facebook, we post often. We're very active on there, and those are ways to connect with us. And then one thing we love the most is when people walk in the door at their headquarters. Right, we'd love for you to come in. We kind of have an open door policy
for even non-veterans.
Absolutely, man. Like awesome. I want that to be clear in this message too, is that we desire the help and the support of those who never served, awesome. Maybe in this capacity. But I've learned so much from people who never served in the military a day in their life, but they've done so many other things, right? So we need the community's help, and we want the community's help because oftentimes they see things that we may not see because we kind of have our own tunnel vision and a lot of times. But we want the community to be involved. And so veteran or not, come see us, come get to know us, talk to us, have a cup of coffee with us, and let's see how we can work together to make Louisville the best place for veterans, right? That's what we're in the hunt for.
I love it. Yeah. Well, we'll share this far and wide.
Thank you.
I'm glad you reached out. I didn't know that this Veterans Club existed. So it's a great step in increasing the profile of it.
Absolutely.
We'll definitely do that.
I appreciate you both.
Really
Thank you.
Appreciate the time.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And remember to like and subscribe. All right. Thanks.
Thank you for listening. You can reach us at neal at talkabouttownky.com. Neal is a realtor with Judah Real Estate Group. Chad is a partner at Insura Max. You can reach him at chadh@insuramax.com. Check us out on the web at talkabouttownky.com. Go Cards!